So good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to listeners and viewers in what is our third episode in a series of 5 on leadership in the new era. So I'm Paul Northey, and my colleague is Peter Coxon.
Peter Coxon, yeah.
So I've known Peter for several years, and I've always valued his insight. And today we're going to talk about the barriers, the big barriers that ultimately prevent people achieving their objectives. So maybe, Peter, you could introduce your ideas and how this influences leadership.
Yes, thank you, Paul. Yes. So at the end of the last pod, we just touched on the secure, the realistic stretch, and then the barrier-breaking goals. Barrier-breaking goals, you're probably only 10% confident of achieving because, by definition, there are all kinds of barriers, there are all kinds of blocks that will stop you from being so successful. The danger is we can slip into victim mentality again and go, well, you know, we would if only but. So I've banned the word but with all of my clients. And I've also banned the other word, which is however, which is the same as but, only longer. So let's look at the big barriers, the big blocks that could prevent you from succeeding. And then let's think about how we can overcome them, get around them, knock them down, climb over them, blow them up, or whatever. So here's another question for you to think about. So what are the biggest barriers to your organization's future success? Think about this, come up with as many as you want and hone it down to your top 6, maximum of 6 of the biggest things that will stop you. And then once you realize the very things that could easily prevent you from being so brilliant, then you've got to start to imagine, so what would the world look like if you could remove these barriers? What would you see? How would it be? So have that vivid imagination. And then think, so what do you need to put in place in order to overcome or undermine these barriers? What will things need to be like so that these barriers are no longer preventing you from progressing? I remember reading an amazing book by an American psychiatrist called Scott Peck. Some of you may have heard of him, A Road Less Traveled. It starts off by saying something like, life is difficult, full stop. And once you accept that, it's no longer so difficult.
Yeah.
Once you accept that life is a road less traveled, with the pitfalls, the obstacles, the barriers, the hurdles, the setbacks, the roadblocks. And then if you accept that your role in life is to have an orienteering approach to life, where you plan the next few steps, you rapidly move forward, you stop, you review, you look back, you look forward, you check progress, you look at the terrain ahead, you check your route map, you check your compass, and then you plan the next few steps. You will get slightly lost at times. So that's why we need to keep checking and thinking, so what can we do to put this right? So that orienteering, when I'm orienteering, which I do, I go romping on the moors, for instance, and I love it, and I don't mind getting a bit lost in the fog because it's a problem, it's a challenge. Let's work it out. Let's scratch our heads. Let's have a discussion. Let's have an argument. Let's try and listen to each other and think. So explain to me why you're saying we should go that way. Help me understand why that is. So we can work through the disagreements to reach agreement as, okay, so actually we think collectively this is the best way forward. I love doing that. And yet, if I put my other hat on, which says life is a road easily traveled, like going up a motorway, and then I come across a roadblock, traffic lights, an accident, thick fog, and I'm delayed, I get so stressed and I'm a victim. I'm stuck on this motorway. I can't get off it. I'm surrounded by other people, and I get ridiculously stressed, and I can't solve the problem. So we've got to maintain that orienteering mindset, if you like. So in other words, recognize that your role in life in general, but as a leader of your organization in particular here, is to face problems and obstacles and to overcome them. Now, if you're going to solve problems, you need some good problem-solving processes and methodologies. And so, draw on what you know about the different problem-solving processes that are around. You can read about them, but use the appropriate process here.
But I think sometimes addressing barriers, ultimately, a lot of the barriers are in your mind. And maybe writing them down or reflecting on them reinforces that. But ultimately, I think most people's challenges are mental barriers. And how would you suggest people try to overcome this kind of big barrier problem?
Yeah, you're spot on again, Paul. I'm beginning to hate you. Really, you absolutely put your finger on the button here. What's the phrase? I've seen the enemy, and he is within.
Yes,
we can be our own worst enemy.
Yeah. The biggest battles are usually between your 2 ears, right?
I can be really quite brilliant at helping other people solve their problems, and I can be rubbish at solving my own problems. So I recognize that when I'm struggling with something, whether it's professional or personal, actually, I might need to turn to someone that I can trust and to discuss it, to help me work it through. Doing it on my own in the middle of the night, going around in circles, time after time after time, it'll certainly ruin my night's kip, but it won't give me a solution come the morning.
Yeah, it'll give you a thick head the following day, which makes the whole situation even worse. Yeah.
So that acceptance then will help you develop a positive attitude and an energized mindset. And sure enough, you'll find solutions and you'll make better progress towards your goals. I certainly recommend it. I prefer, with myself, my own business, but also with my clients, to set out your year goals, working backwards. So what do you want to achieve? These secure, these stretch, and these barrier breaking goals have 3 columns or 3 rows. What do you want to achieve in 12 months? And then work backwards. So by the end of Q3, what must you have achieved to achieve your secure? What must you have achieved to achieve your stretch? What must you have achieved to achieve your barrier breaking? And then work back to 6 months and then 3 months.
Yeah, and I guess doing that in a business context and a personal context is also important. To run almost 2 separate cards in parallel, where you put your stretch barriers might be to present at a conference, for instance. As a personal objective, it doesn't probably mean a lot to your business, but for you personally, it's really challenging your internal issues. Yeah.
Well, you've now introduced the idea of your personal goals, which I think is a brilliant thing to do. I do that each year. I'm looking around for my diary, which is called Forward Thinking, and I've written it for myself.
Yeah.
And it helps me look forward to the year and plan the year.
Yeah. And
then I can review it through the year. But in terms of the organization, I will have this at a triple level of the secure, the stretch, and the barrier breaking goals. So running it at 3 levels. The more you aim for your barrier breaking, the closer you will get to them. It kind of doesn't matter if you achieve them, actually. Supposing you only achieved 80% of your barrier breaking goals. Well, that's way more than your secure goals, and it's actually more than your stretch goals even.
Yes, yeah.
So aiming high, you're likely to get further. So once you've done that, you work that through at a triple level, working it back to the 3 months. Then you can begin to develop your action plan for the next 3 months. 3 months is enough. Remember that orienteering approach.
Yeah.
3 months are enough, and you'll review that monthly and indeed weekly, but set goals for the next 3 months. Now, once you've agreed what you're aiming for and what might stop you, and you've thought through how to get over those barriers, then you've got to start to decide, so as we're getting this action plan, who exactly is doing what? Who's responsible for doing what, and by when? So let's get some due dates written in. Don't impose them again, please. Ask someone, by when do you think you would be able to achieve that thing that we've agreed is your responsibility? And do you have a sense of how to do it?
I think your choice of words is very important. Yeah, I think you can draw people into the situation and make them feel ownership of a topic, but just by careful selection of words. Yeah, rather than make it like a false. Oh, this is your responsibility. This is your stretch goal. Now, can you make it or can't you make it? You know, that is an instant kind of turn off, yeah, and doesn't really, I think, buy in anything, yeah. But that kind of, let's say, more collaborative talk, collaborative words is very supportive in what is clearly stretch goals which you'd like somebody to achieve, or you would like to achieve, and that knowing that support mechanism is there is very important. Yeah, that failure shouldn't be ultimately feared. It's just the attempt is more important, and a non-attempt is the worst thing of all. Yeah, is to not do is not to do anything. Yeah, because that's the only guarantee of failure, is to do nothing. Yeah.
So yes, you're right, and so the careful selection of words is important, but it's even more important that they come from the right place, that actually you do want them to own this. Even though the trouble is, when I have ideas, I think my ideas are the best, and therefore your ideas, Paul, can't be as good as mine. But actually, if I recognize that we need to run through this together, and we all need to own this, and we need to work it through till then.
Okay.
With the changes that we're bringing in at the moment, there may well be new roles that are required, different responsibilities where appropriate. So let's get clarity on who's taking on what and how that's changing.
Great.
And because of the change in working situations, some organizations are accelerating a new, what's called a distributed form of leadership, with an increase in empowerment, an increase in the required trust in people to take on additional responsibilities. And many staff and many small teams are being encouraged to manage themselves. That sense of self-managing teams is accelerating again through circumstance.
Yeah.
So lots of leaders who were actually a little bit averse to some of that. Oh, that sounds a bit worrying. Some of them have been forced to do it and actually are beginning to think, wow, this is working. Trust, empowerment, self-management all have the potential for adding value and for speeding up actions and for reducing costs and for overcoming the barriers. So this isn't laissez-faire management, Paul, though it requires you to ensure the effective delivery of results. Of course, we're not kind of washing our hands and going, it's over to you.
Yeah.
So we absolutely need to keep in tune, keep listening, to be coaching our people to help them improve their competence and their effectiveness, and also to help them improve their confidence.
Yeah.
So you coach them to help them be confident that they've got the resources they need, the time they need. They're competent enough to do the job, and they're confident enough to have a good go at it. And then you can begin to hold them accountable in a way that demonstrates what I call a just approach. It's being soft on the person and tough on the issue.
Yeah. Okay. So I think that's a great point where we can end today's session, because I think the next session is which is session 4 in our series of 5, which is about staying close to your heart. So this is maybe we'll follow on from your words and give us further insight about how you ultimately make decisions, how you behave, how you act, how you lead. Ultimately, it has to come from the heart. So I'm looking forward to having that discussion and hearing what you say, Peter.
Absolutely. It's what one of my global clients is now calling empathy and edge.
Okay, yeah, that's a good phrase.
Combination then of leadership approaches that demonstrate authentic care for your people and for the whole organization, whilst growing your people to raise their performance over time. And that's where we'll get into that.
Yeah, that's a great phrase. I might utilize that myself. at some stage. So thank you again, Peter, and look forward to speaking to you soon.
Speak soon, yeah.
Bye-bye.